information directory. Usually pursues fine arts, government agencies, anything you need to know about Laguna Beach in a history theme. We mailed it directly to every home, and it was very well received. We provided some publications to the archive here at the Historical Society. We've been on through Orange County and Los Angeles in 35 different regions, producing 400 glossy magazines. We mail them in every home. You need to read. And we're back to do Laguna Beach once more. We're very excited to be doing this. We'd like to work in cooperation with the Historical Society to help our archive. It will be a 4-color glossy magazine, same style publication. It will be mailed to every home in Laguna and South Laguna. And what we're doing differently this time is we will be providing them to retailers as well for distribution. So the people coming into Laguna Beach during the first season will like magazine rack to hand out to people coming into the area. The editorial profile of this publication, as are all the publications, will be dealing with the Native Americans, the Spanish-Mexican rule and transition, pioneers, founders, leaders, what happened during the turn of the century, obviously the arts and how it developed the area, incorporation, how the church and the community evolved here in Laguna Beach, historical landmarks, what happened during the wars, World War I and World War II, and bringing it forward today. In special interest, dealing with the economics, geography, communications, what events happened during the Depression, architectural heritage, human interest stories, cities, and any national history, and the history of actually street names in certain areas. So, if you have any questions, like I said, we'd like the support of the Historical Society. We will be providing the organization with additional copies to sell at the Smith House at no charge. And we'd like anybody who feels like they'd like to contribute, we'd like to make assignments and go forward with this project. Any questions?
When do you think you'll be going out?
We're targeting September.
This year?
This year, absolutely. In fact, I live in Laguna Beach, and I've been traveling to some of these other areas, and this is my hometown. I've been here 15 years, and I'm really excited to be back here. And I'll be selling it myself, so it's very special part of this project. Thank you. You
The neat thing about it is it doesn't cost anything to pay for by outside.
You're right.
Another thing I wanted to bring up is finally after 5 months I put together the photographs again, raised the price to $3. We have 30 different views. We have another 20 that will be available in 2 weeks. And I'll bring it up to 50 different photographs that are available for sale. Right now there's a sale at the market. If anybody wants any tonight, they're on the table this afternoon at the end of the meeting, and we'd like to start now. And Mark would like to, this is Mark Klosterman, local lifeguard.
As I mentioned, I work currently as a lifeguard lieutenant for the city of Laguna Beach, and I've worked as a lifeguard for the city for 20 years now. I've lived in the city for 30 years, and I'm kind of a newcomer to with some of the people that are here in the room. When Jane first called me and said, hey, let's get this thing together, let's pull some of the old slides together, some of the old photographs, and get some old stories going, I said, great. So immediately I called one of the gentlemen in the room, Ed Hobert, and Ed told me, he said, Mark, I'll tell you what. He goes, after some negotiation, he said, I think I can help you out. He said, I'll tell you what, I'll get you through 1935 and you can handle it from there. So I thought, boy, we need some more help in 1935 here. We negotiated a little more, and Ed said, okay, I may talk about the 40s a little bit. So I got on the phone then, and said, the publisher started this magazine. He said, Lockwood, I need an article on the lifeguard department for your first issue. So I dug up all this stuff, and this is quite old. Not the greatest research, but the next year,
Craig,
it's yes, sir.
You couldn't wear shorts. You had to
That's
wear
right. Yeah, it was illegal to wear just shorts. You had to have a top. And the next year, we're looking at it now. They held a competitive examination.
In the previous slide, there was a woman dressed in a lifeguard's uniform, and you made a mention of that.
She was a swimming instructor who was brought down as an examiner, I believe. She did well. Yeah, according to Ed, the question was about the woman that was in front of the tower, and according to Ed, that was a Red Cross examiner that came down and oversaw some of their training techniques and things.
His name is Terwilliger. Bigger than I am.
Who was the girl?
That was her. That's Terwilliger.
You said it was Shattuck.
Oh, that girl was Harriet Shattuck.
The girl was Harriet Shattuck.
Yeah.
In the earlier shot.
No, that's right.
Okay.
And her father owned the lumberyard in Upland.
They used a bike, I guess, to get up and down the boardwalk.
Everyone said he was working out because he's going to the University of Arizona.
I think you can put the seat up there.
There we go.
There's a tower you don't see.
Yeah. Again, there's some historical discrepancies or some anomalies in our historical digging. But Ed has this tower dated
1932.
32.
That was a local bathhouse right back of it.
Right. Well, that was the Smith Hotel.
I know.
But very few people know about the Smith Hotel.
Yeah, this is about the time that Dana Lamb and Calvin Beardsley, they gone to some of
Big Lab was gone.
Yeah, they were already gone. Okay. We had, at one point, they were only guarding Maine and Woods Cove, and Beardsley was stationed there, wasn't he, in 1930?
Yes.
Okay. And then
That's Margie Burns.
Margie Burns. You notice up here they've got a landline and a diamond can. These were kept in the tower, in the station at that point. What did you guys keep in the long hanging locker here?
We took extra cans.
Extra cans. And
Did you see the article in the newspaper, the fellow from Huntington Beach that invented those, just died here the other day.
no, I didn't.
He was a surfer and,
Yeah.
and he invented these lifeguard buoys and a surfboard, fins for surfboard.
Oh, you mean John Blake?
Yeah.
Yeah, he wasn't from Huntington. He was from, actually, he was from Wisconsin. In fact, I don't know if I have a picture of him. What year is this?
Now that skiff was made by Coronado.
Granada.
And then the background.
You can see
that was
Ocean Avenue here.
that's Ocean Avenue.
That would be back up, yeah.
Yeah. And look, we're talking about Village Laguna. We're talking real Village Laguna. This is lifeguard training in 1932,
1930, 31.
31.
That was Bill Shields on the left-hand side.
He used to own the, for those of you who are newcomers here and don't remember Bill Shields, I don't know how many of you are, but he had the hardware store, he owned a hardware company, and he and Ed, can you all hear me? Is that better? Okay. Ed and Bill Shields went on one of these incredible rescues, and I'll give the brief and then Ed can tell the story. But at any rate, they got a call that there was a bunch of people had been swept into a rip at Dawg Island, Treasure Island. And so their call had gone into the lifeguards, and the lifeguards called the police chief, and Ed, I'll let you take it from there because this is a great story. Staff.
It's okay, hang on to that. Well, we had no emergency equipment like they have today with sirens and all of this stuff. If one of us owned a car, great, we used it. But Chief Abe Johnson had this big four-door Packard, canvas top. And so he would take us down, and we were going down 35 at least, 35. I was standing on one running board there. I swear to God, I could have gone like that and made the car go faster. But he said, Edward, we'll get there in one piece. So we got down to this place that Craig is talking about. Golf Island. There were, by the time we got there were 4 people in the water. Started out with just one. Somebody went out to get them, and then somebody loaded the skiff up and went out around the island and come in and they capsized. So by the time we got there were 4 people to take care of. But these, I might give you a rundown of who these people are.
Okay, we'll trying to raise it for the people in the back here. So
Oh, I see. Well, they're out there.
there you go. Good.
Okay, of course, that's Dana Lamb standing. He was the chief lifeguard. His father was the tax assessor of Orange County. That's Bill Shields on the end, Harriet Shattuck, Cal Beardsley, Dick Malone, and this guy's name I forget completely. I guess I took the picture.
See, I think I've got his name down.
You got his name down?
I might have it.
Well,
Back to the
historical document that really came up with the rest. Compared to what I have. No, it wasn't.
Okay.
Okay. There we are exercising at surf rescue. That's me and the lead. Yeah, I don't recognize any of those other 3 people. But you see the old tin cans that we had. If you weren't careful, they would beat you to death. Sure. That's what they did. You guys really came up with some good stuff.
Oh, thanks.
Well, I mean,
We took it all out of your book.
I mean, to get it on slide so quickly. Okay, there is Harriet Shattuck, and that is me. I can always tell the way I stand. And that's Dick Malone and Dana Lamb on the, and who's in the
Who's
forward
Andy?
steps, I don't know. I don't know. Okay.
Yeah, perfect day. I mean, there's not a wave in sight.
Not a wave in sight.
Perfect training day.
There's Harriet Shattuck, and that's the road marshal. And I, for some reason, trying to get into the stern of the boat. And Dick Malone was before it said, Dana Lamb is the actress said, that's more than like the rear view. That looks kind of like Cal Beardsley.
It does, doesn't it?
But yeah. These shots of old, with the old pier. That's what we have.
You're off the main beach, or?
That's right. It was off of the
Bird Rock, the
Yeah.
main beach. That's right at the main beach, and that's the old pier that went out there. Okay, let's try the next one. So we got
What's really interesting to note is that they had about 6 to 8 guards during the early years in the department. But because they had a pier out there and there was usually a motorboat, when they got extended rescues where we get
really big surf and big rip currents go out from the main beach, they were often able to use a motorboat off the end of the pier as a patrol vehicle, and it augmented their rescue capacity. And to this day, we still have to launch through the surf with our rubber boats, our IRVs as they're called, inflatable rubber boats, or to bring the lifeguard boat up from Dana Point, where it's kept down there with the state and the harbor department boats. But they had that capacity then, which was actually, in a way, a lot quicker for them because they could always get the pier operator to augment their rescue techniques. And we'll see a slide later on of some clippings that Ed had in his scrapbook, and they mention how they're able to effect a mass rescue by using the boat. Yes, ma'am.
What happened to the 4 people in the
Oh, well, he
We're never talking about rip times. I was in the tower, in the old tower there, and I looked up towards the Hotel Laguna, and there was a massive rip going on. I mean, that thing was churning and was going up. Right in the middle of it was the airport. Never will forget. So I ran down the beach and headed right with her lighting to take advantage of this current going out. So I came up to her and I said, I'm going to get you in, okay? So I flipped her over in her back and I did a cross-chest carrier. You grab this person right in. You're there you go. Kerchunk.
He's got me on his hip.
That's it. And so on the way in, this young woman had the nerve to ask if I knew what I was doing. I know what I'm doing. Again, the question came up, well, do you know what you're doing? I said, no, what am I doing? Repairing my bathing suit. So I got her in okay, and she came out with her mother the next day with a carton of cigarettes, and not a one of us smoked.
Her specific question, the way Bill Shields told the story of Ed's rescue is they all pull up on the chief's touring car. They jump off, they got their cams, and they're looking around, and they see this huge flock of people standing there, frozen, and all these heads bobbing in the rip outside. And at that point, they hadn't quite pulled up. They're pulling onto the bluff, and the chief hits the brakes, and the big touring car swings around like this, and they all make this flying leap into the sand, and then they go make the rescue. But it's such a great image of this big Cadillac touring car, like Elliot Ness, pulling up, and all the guys leaping off the running boards. And I'll let Ed take it from there. What happened? Bill said that you guys ran down, you grabbed a couple of inner tubes and formed a human chain to get the first people in, and then you began ferrying them back and forth.
Well, that was, we had this called, that slanting rock of again, High School Park. We got a call one time that there was children were on there and they're being swept off. So I think that was the year Brown was on. So Brown and I went up there. Nevertheless, went up there.
It's Windy Brown?
No, not it was after Windy Brown. I forget who went with me.
George Browner.
No, not George Brown. I've got the guy's names here, so in the article. But nevertheless, so I said, I'll get the kids that have been washed into the soup there. So I went in and pulling them out one at a time. And whoever was with me got the other kids off the slanting rock. And I guess, did you get the photograph of this thing that showed the children rescue?
No, I didn't.
Oh, the crowds on the beach. The crowds on the beach.
And I've got a picture of the article.
The crowd on the beach was my mother. That was up at the top of the path there. As each child came up. she had her finger in his face. You weren't paying attention to what you were doing, and my boy had to go out there and rescue you. So that's my mother was proud. What do you got next?
The pier, the hurricane, 1939, the story goes, tore down.
Yeah.
And they actually had a full-blown hurricane come spin right up the coast
I
and
came home on leave and they had a big storm and it,
tore it down.
and it went down in 39. And the breakers were breaking on the corner of Broadway and Coast Highway. The wind was blowing so hard and the surf was high and big.
Just use coastline.
Yeah.
In 36.
36, good. We've got some IDs coming up here. Season ends for Laguna Beach Lifeguards, let's see. Cafe patrons, signals, Hopeman saved,
But there's,
and then there's,
that's Bill Shields over my shoulder and Dick Malone is behind.
you doing a drill?
And we're demonstrating how to make a rescue in a big surf.
Yeah, you can see the buoy dragging behind them, and giving the idea that this is probably a pretty big surf, because that looks like it's about 20 yards out from them. There's a couple of 6-foot-plus guys here, and the wave tops over their heads. So that's looking like a pretty good day for a rescue training.
It was a good day for a demonstration.
Yeah.
Is that the next one?
These are more clippings from. I shot these from a different angle. Yeah, the report. This is really neat. They had their first. They gave a report to the city council, and now for 4 years, was this 33 that you gave that report? It looks like it. 33 or 34.
Yeah.
I did a report, 35.
35.
Go ahead.
And they had an absolutely flawless record. And they set such a good example that in the 65 years of the department's history, we've only had one drowning on a garden beach. And that was because the guard was in the water at the time making another rescue. 65 years. That has to be millions and millions of Ed Hobert, Dale.
They stand up next to me so I can see where they are.
He's over here. He moved on you. Hey, Dave.
Yes.
Stand up for us. You got a picture of you in here too.
I'll see you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. These are more advanced scrapbooks. There. Yeah. Tell them about your.
No, that was that certificate was issued in 1930. The first year that I was down here, I really found my place with that ocean. That first summer that I came down, so I immediately got into the guys there. In fact, I noticed that every night they would go out and bring the lifeguard skiff in. So I said, one night I walked up to Dick Malone and I said, hey, can I go out and get the skiff? And Malone said, can you roll? Yeah. I can roll. So I went out and got the skiff and came in. Waves meant nothing to me. Absolutely nothing. Here comes this thing up behind me and I'm blowing away. And the stern gets up like this, and then it roaches, and it rolls over, and I break the floor sword over my shoulders, and Malone comes down and picks me up from underneath there. and then Mrs. Dunn, who is the president of the American Red Cross, she tells this story. She says, and the first time I saw Edward, he was being dogged with iodine. I think. Dogging iodine and abrasives over the wall.
Was that Malone's way of saying thank you?
Oh, yeah. He's loved to do things like that. Okay, here.
Dave, you're in the shot, aren't you? Aren't you on the end there?
On the left end.
Yeah.
Who is it?
Dave Toddy? Can you ID that? That's Brennan McClellan.
Standing on his toes.
Yeah, right. Yeah, look at him.
Look tall, you know.
You guys have a pretty tall crowd here. These guys are all 6, 3, 4. Dave, what year was that?
Why don't you go do that, sir?
Yeah, you want to keep it out on top.
On the right end is junior golf.
Can you go up and stand by the screen so we can get you?
I haven't seen this turkey in over 50
This is
years.
junior golf, Bud Carrigan.
I haven't seen this turkey in that long.
Well, that's what Kerrigan.
Yeah. Hank Woods, Bill Walters,
Skinny Walters, yeah, Bill Walters.
Brennan McClellan, George Brown, Dave Tawny, and this is the guy that was
That good-looking guy there on the corner is Dave Tawny?
Absolutely.
Dave, what year was that? 35? 38.
36 or 37.
36 or 37.
Let me tell you a story. Let me tell you a story that involved.
Thank you.
A group of us were surfing up by the pier. And there was nothing but rocks underneath there. But the waves that coming over that pier. Remember that day that we were surfing there? And a group of us were going out. And here's Dave Tawny up on the top of this far out of the water. I don't know whether he was yelling at the top of his lungs or not. But he had the best ride of the day. He had the best ride.
You will notice that now we have the tower on the beach. So now we get back to the mystery. Just when was the lifeguard tower moved? Now, Ed and George Griffith, Dave, you may have some recollection of this too. Brennan told me when he was still alive many years ago that he recollected that it had been the winter of 1932-33 that they had moved the tower. Ed believes it was later. Dave, do you have any recollection?
I think it was 36, 35 or 36.
35 or 36?
35, because after the garden, 36.
And they brought it in there.
Yeah, but of course, I was sort of the master lifeguard. They pushed me for down Victoria Beach and didn't want to hear it.
I think they still do that.
They tried to hide me.
Mark, what do you schedule them for? Outside pushing a item, huh?
That was 36, 35, or 36.
Dave, who's the gentleman standing in the white ducks?
I can't see from here.
Okay. Well,
They're still using those old cans.
oh yeah.
I don't recognize
What was that guy's name? I said Bill White. The guy who was doing the
I don't know. We tried This is about 1945 or 46, and this is a group of lifeguards. I think Tompkins is in that.
I think this is Keyhole Tompkins, who ended up on the fire department, and also they called him Birdhead Drever. He also ended up on the fire department, and his son works for the fire department, and of course Keyhole's son was a famous surfer in Laguna Beach, now living in Hawaii.
I think this is my cousin Tom Van Rensselaer. Now, if you remember him, any of the Van Rensselaers. And that surface, does anybody remember?
What year around with the boards and
I
everything?
think it's 45 or 46. This is we take a big jump now. We don't have too much documentation, but this is 1958. John Creed, who's now president of Chart Houses. Chad Burton.
That's Phil Jones.
Phil Jones, excuse me, Chad Burton here.
Okay.
Phil Jones and Dean Westgard. We don't have an idea on that one. I'm not sure. And again, just standing on the old boardwalk, as everybody in the room remembers, just, the highway wasn't on your back then. You just had those great old buildings, and you would sit there and feel like it was, that highway was a million miles away.
That was my cousin Ned Van Rensselaer's badge, circa about 1954-55. He gave it to me after he quit when I started guarding. I still have it. This is from Dale's period. Dale, are you in shot? I don't know. Chief Laverne Duggar, who all of you may remember, Dean Westgard, Gene DePaulis, Rod Reel, Jim Kelly, I remember. We got Parlette's up there.
Jake's in there.
Dennis Jacobson is the white lower.
Right.
That's Jake.
Right lower. Oh yeah, this is Jake.
Where's Parlett?
Parlette's up there.
Who was that one you just went into?
John Parlett, Dennis Jacobson.
Parlett was
Well, yeah, a little harder. He lost it. I think when he was in high school, I think John was like a senior in high school. He got an infection and they gave penicillin and he reacted to it and he lost his hair.
But that was our era when we were down there.
This is, we used to have these lifeguard beauty contests. They were held right at the tower. You can see the tower in the background. And that's Kiwi Haynes and
Jim Bergman.
Jim Bergman, myself, and I'm trying to remember the girls' names. Lindy King. This is Lindy King. And Carolyn Berry. John, did John show up tonight?
No, he's not there.
And it's really funny, Dale. You probably remember this. Even we had a big girl. It was Candy Calhoun. She was John's girlfriend. She won and got crowned the queen that year. John had hurt his back and he couldn't lift her, so Reel tells me, go in there, Lockwood, and help him lift it. So, of course, John being 6'6" and me being 5'6", I got all the weight. And she was a big girl. There's another in front of the lifeguard tower. You can see the deck here, and we used to have lifeguard seats up there.
Could you imagine trying to do this in the 90s or even the 80s? It would be, it would be sexist. It would be, bad image for the lifeguards and the whole deal. But this was a big part of their summer. They would pick the bikini beauty from the beach and bring them down and see who won. Just a different time, different era. This is 1966 or something.
This is Paul Goffis with junior guards, and
there's a lot of people a lot of names anyway you'd probably recognize here. This is Billy Brown, and of course his dad, Don Brown, guarded here. Earl Wellsbury and his brother, Mike Armstrong, all local Laguna kids. He went on to be a famous surfer. He's living up in Cayucas now. Brett Jameson, Jim Hyde. There's John Enfield, Doug and Denny Smiths of Smith's Construction and stuff. A lot of kids. You guys may even recognize a couple of these names are slipping, but yeah, that's a good group.
It's amazing that of our junior lifeguards, the high percentage that become rookie lifeguards and then go into becoming regular guards.
Shortly after this photo was taken, Dale Gear, who's sitting here, recognized a need that we had the young kids, and then we lost them from about that 16, 17-year-olds, and then they jumped in at 18 to become the lifeguards and go guard the outside beaches. And Dale recognized the need to bridge that gap, and he started what we call our rookie lifeguard program. They're not like the junior guards. They're 100% lifeguards. They go through all the training the lifeguards do, but they get direct supervision on your main beach down here.
And so they get a very intense, ongoing training program as they make their first mistakes and miss their first rescues, recognizing them, and go to their first critical medical aids. And they have this direct supervision. And this program that Dale started has turned into basically the bread and butter program of Laguna Beach, because we're not like Huntington Beach and Newport Beach and San Clemente, where you can be in what they call a zero tower on the pier. You can pick up your binos and you can see your whole stretch of beach. And you can call out the tower, hey, number 18, you got a rescue, go right. They're in these isolated coves. The backup is on the highway, maybe 3, 4, 5, 6 minutes away, sometimes longer depending on the scenarios. And you need some highly trained and confident people out in these isolated coves. And it's a seasonal job. And Dale started this program where now we can take these 16, 17-year-old kids. They get a Main Beach Rookie Program training under their belt. They have the confidence that they can go out and handle these isolated coves with themselves or one other lifeguard. So it's really been a great program. Other departments have come to us and tried to duplicate it for their particular scenarios because it has been so successful. And many of these people here, Billy and Earl and John Infield, a lot of them, Mike Catino, Dirk Van Dusen, Charlie Ware, a lot of them were Dale's first group that he said, hey, look at this potential. Local kids, good, strong kids. We need them now. Let's give them good, strong supervision at 16 and put them on those outside beaches at 17 and 18. So real important program.
Interesting historically is to look at some of the evolution of equipment here. If you're looking at a Peterson rescue tube, an inflatable Peterson rescue tube, they will be his group 35, 36 day. You were the first guys to use these, weren't you?
Yes, we
Yeah. First guys to use inflatable rescue tubes. Now, this is the kind we use now. They're non-inflatable, they're sponge rubber, and they become the standard for Laguna Beach. A lot of departments you'll see use, if you watch Baywatch, they use a little plastic rendition of that earlier diamond can. But this allows a victim to be secured into the belt. And it clips around them like a water ski belt, and their hands are free. They don't have to hold on to something, and they can actually have a little more, be a little more assistance both to themselves and themselves. Dale, what year was this? 65, 66?
Probably.
Yeah. Well, I think, Dean Westgard, John Parlett, Bill Rowley, still here in town. Who's that? Remember him? What's his name?
Stan.
Yeah, these guys.
Stan Henry.
Yeah, Henry. Punky Parlett.
My son Cunningham.
Dale. Yeah. Dale's in there. There's me. There's Rob. Dale, this is you right here, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's Dale, Rod Rio, Eugene DePaulis. Is that you, Rod?
Art Smart.
Art Smart right there.
And there's Davis, who's next.
Yeah.
Eugene DePaul.
Davis owns a print shop there.
Well, this was,
Next one down there, Sizemore.
Sizemore. Yeah.
Isn't it 62, 63?
I'd say this is probably 62 right there.
62.
Yeah.
Doug Palmer.
There's Doug Gray.
Oh yeah, Doug Gray. That's Doug Gray.
Doug Gray is Gray Elderman.
Yeah, Elderman is that down.
White
These are-
guy with his head down.
These are
Hours next to him? Yeah.
these were the guys that were the hunks when I was in high school. This was about 1961, 62.
That was me rowing past Santa Monica Pier. I got so stoked. Brennan McClellan really was responsible for me being a lifeguard. He, when I was about 6 years old, I got stung by a bee at Sleepy Hollow, and my mom took me down to the main tower. It was about 1940-something or other, during the war. Brennan was a lifeguard there, and he came out, and he took the stinger out, put something on, and told me it wouldn't hurt anymore. And it did. It was just amazing. I don't know what he put on, but probably it was a placebo effect. And at that point, he had a rescue. He grabbed his can and his pins, and he went charging out into the surf, and he brought back this person. And I was this little toddler, and I was so impressed. I couldn't move. I had to stay there for the rest of the day. I made my mom go leave me. And I just stayed there and watched them. And I decided I'd be a guard. Well, they were all great rowers. Dave Tawney has stories and legends have been told about one of the rescues that he made. Got me so stoked. I jumped in my dory one week. I was the city's first permanent guard, and they gave me a week off right after the end of the season. I jumped my boat and I rode from Santa Barbara to Laguna and stuff. Wow. That was taken by Tommy Zahn, who was a real famous lifeguard from Santa Monica. This is the Sea Cup program. These were the junior guards, and we had the old cans, and I put on the old uniform, and we showed them all the different ways that they had done life saving. It was sort of a beach orientation for youngsters. And it was a real good program, ran all through the 60s. And when did you guys jump Sea Cubs?
No, it's still going strong.
Mermaids are going.
Mermaids, Sea Cubs, and Junior Guards. So the kids can still get involved in an ocean orientation program. The parents love it. As a matter of fact, this summer we're already completely booked out. We're not taking any more of the children into it. And from 8 to 10 years old, they're either a Sea Cub or a Mermaid. And then from 11 through 15, they're Junior Guards. So it's still a super program for us, and it gets the local kids oriented to the ocean, the rocks, how to deal with the waves, the rip currents, the inshore holes. And it's a super program to have the kids go through, whether they plan on becoming lifeguards or not.
I think, Dale, weren't you instrumental in Sea Cubs, you and Cunningham?
Yeah.
You started
What we try to do is to start a program where the kids can start at 8, and by the time they were 18.
Come on up so they can hear you. Tell us a little bit about it.
I teach now, so I've always been a teacher, even when I was little. But when I came down here to Laguna, I saw all these local kids that wanted to be lifeguards, but bottom line, they really couldn't swim very well. I came from a swimming background. So I told them, I'll start a swimming program for you, a lifeguarding program. We'll start at 8. John Cunningham took the little guys, and they went 8 to 10 or 11. Basically, they had to be able to swim around the buoy. Once they swam around the buoy, then they came into my program, and then we did that for a few years, and then we developed this rookie program. So bottom line, a kid could come in at 8, and by the time we put him out on his own beach all by himself, he had 10 years worth of training. So the kid was really well trained. He knew exactly what we wanted, he knew exactly what to do.
We really owe a
That's where
lot
that whole thing came from.
to Ed and George, Dave, for the kind of inspiration they gave us as kids, all of us who were local kids and grew up here. I went away, I didn't go to school. My mom sent me off to military school when I was 6 years old, so I went into the Army very young.
Poor thing.
But every summer I would come down, and they had an informal junior lifeguard program when I was in my early teens, 13, 14. I tried to find some of the photos that I have from that period, but for another time. I've got some great shots. But it's always been a real inspiration, and it's also given Laguna a very unique capacity to turn out really good lifeguards. I think I'll let Mark tell you a little bit about how we are trained, what it means, and how intense that training is. You probably don't realize this, but Laguna has the most comprehensive and intense training program in the United States and probably the world for lifeguards. So I'll let Mark tell you a little bit about that.
Yeah, we'll kind of move on slide-wise. I think we get into some of it. Here's just a lineup of some of the testing that we do. all of you, I think, are aware of the physical capabilities and everything, but a lot of the testing, they have to go through written examinations, they have to go through practical examinations, and currently we run our trainings 4 consecutive weekends in May. We wrap it up this Saturday. It's a 70-plus hour training. It's the longest lifeguard training on the coast right now, and it's due to our environment. Rocky, isolated coves. We are the busiest lifeguard department on the coast per capita. In other words, for every 1,100 people that come to the city of Laguna Beach, we make 1 rescue. For every 84 people that come to the city of Laguna Beach, we do a preventative action to keep them from getting into a dangerous situation. The other departments don't have that type of record. Our ordinance advisements, municipal code violations and things. So Laguna is a very, very unique spot lifeguarding wise. Here's some of our rock training that we have to do. Again, because of our rocky isolated coast, we have to train them specifically to make rescues in the critical rock areas. I know every lifeguard sitting here, whether it's George Griffin from 1929 all the way up to the newcomer here, have had some very critical life-saving rescues in these rocky areas, in these currents and all. So just doing a little lifeguard maintenance on this famous landmark, the tower. Very few changes over the years from when it came over. Did we decide when it got over there? Finally? What did we narrow it down to? Let's see.
35.
35. Okay, 1935. A few changes over the years, but basically the same tower, the same structure that came over in 1935 is still serving us today. They run Dale Gear's rookie program out of it in the summer. As you know, the Lifeguard Association built a new lifeguard headquarters after the old boardwalk was torn down, and the boys club that we worked out of was torn down with it. The city of Laguna Beach channeled their funds into the trolley instead of the lifeguard headquarters that they promised, so we built our own lifeguard headquarters down there. That pretty much, I believe, wraps up the slideshow. If anyone wants to throw out any,
You've got some real Laguna history here. These are the people that made the beach part of Laguna, the beach. Captain?
I would really appreciate it if, when you speak, you just come up to the podium. It's not a big public thing, but I'd like to get you on tape for posterity. Please.
That'd be great. Come on, George.
You just come up and give us your name.
I know I'm the oldest one.
Okay, come on.
I like that.
All right.
You look so good.
My point is,
Can I have your name?
I'm Catherine Petty.
Aha.
And I was born and raised in Laguna Beach.
Thank you.
And that was a long time ago when I started. But the point that I wanted to make was, you started out with year when the first lifeguard. Well, my husband was the first lifeguard. In 1926 and 7. He was out here going to Florida College summer school. And in the afternoons, he would, NE hired him to be a lifeguard. And so that's how long lifeguarding has gone on.
26.
He used to work just a few hours, and of course he was supposed to get paid for it, but he seldom did. Anyway.
Did you work at the Maine? Right, it's put at Ocean Avenue there, the bathhouse?
Yes, there was an old bathhouse there that NE was running, and he worked for him. And he tells the story. One day, Gus Durkham, the Durkham family were home. They didn't really around.
Let me tell some stories about the road trips.
Gus, I think we had to go out, so there was somebody out from beyond the breakers who was in trouble. This was an old, big, heavy boat. And of course, Gus Durkin was as strong as an ox. And he was rowing, and my husband was doing whatever they had to do to get out there. And the big breaker came along and just took them. And Chuck said he was scared to death because he came to the surface and there was no Gus. He looked all around, he couldn't find Gus. The boat was upside down. All of a sudden he noticed that the boat was moving toward the sand. And here, as soon as he got his feet on the sand, Gus lifted this boat. He was stronger than ox. And they lifted the boat up. And here he was under it. Well, that's just one of the stories he told me about.
Thank you so much.
We'll take it in chronological
Go
order.
ahead, George. Come on,
Chuck Petty, as you just heard, was the first lifeguard. My claim to fame is I was the first paid lifeguard.
Could I get your name?
George S. Griffin,
Aha.
330 Cliff Drive.
Thank you.
Anyhow, I have prepared a couple of things here that one is for the Historical Society if they want it, and the other one is for the lifeguard tower people if they want it.
Oh, how wonderful.
Copies of 5 pages of city council meetings. And the one that was referred to earlier was this one here, which tells about the $75 a month when we were going to have paid lifeguards. Blah, blah, blah.
Did you have those from originally, or did you get copies from the city?
I got these from City Hall.
Yeah.
I gave you some. I
So I heard something, yeah.
I gave him this pic. This is the original lifeguard. This is Graham Clifford Smith, and this is George S. Griffin. Now, Jimmy was 2 years older. I was 19, and Jimmy was 21, so he was the head man. And, I tried to get him to come to a meeting here 4 or 5 years ago, but unfortunately he couldn't make it, and he died 3 years ago. But one of the things that he said to me, and I was amused by Eddie's picture of that whole gang trying to launch that boat. And Jimmy says, I bet they don't launch those boats individually. Jimmy insisted that we had to launch the dory alone. No help, no Dale Lamb, no anybody else. It was sort of fun. Goof Malone was down there playing around with us too at the time. Anyhow, it's interesting to note in these things if you look at them. Now, private line, did I say? I think it was, I lied, it was $80, not $82.50. This lists, when I was paid, when Graham was paid. And it also lists some interesting things. Abe John got $175 a month, chief of police. He's on this one. But anyway, this is the first one, second, third, fourth, fifth. I think you'll have fun looking at them. They're all checked. Yeah.
Didn't they name Johnson Street, which is Shadow Lane now, after Chief Johnson?
I know.
Because we had a lot there, and I remember that he lived there.
He was quite a guy. I don't know, how long was he around there?
32 to 35.
Abe?
Oh,
Abe, he was, when I was there, he was chief of police.
Abe Johnson,
I think I have a.
Yeah, A. Johnson Jr.
Old Johnson Lane, when?
Thank you so much.
Is that yours? I don't know, I don't think so. That's for the Historical Society. These are contributors if you want.
Thanks, Rich.
Thanks. All right.
That's wonderful.
Also, Art Stead is in there. Remember Art Stead, the city engineer? Which gives his salary, gives all the interesting things that we spend our money for. days.
It's interesting that you guys took a big jump in salary. When you look at the records, they were making like 125 and 29 in early part of 29, but by 30 they cut that in half because of the crash. So there was this enormous dump in wages where they literally cut them in half. So the next summer, the guys that came back to guard were only making about 50% of what they made the summer before. The Depression was then in full force. And you guys did a great job. Never lost, no matter what they paid you, still carried through. And every one of these guys, too, has made probably 50 rescues since that time, just being on the beach. I know Dale has made 3 or 4 that I am aware of. Jay, you've made rescues since then. And they would just have acted as kind of the eyes and ears for the off season. So they're all heroes who continue.
Of course, we were lucky. There were only 2 of us. What do you have now? 70 or something like that?
More 75 for the whole season.
They were just amazing. The open people that did hold our stiffs, and when they were clear down the Gulf Islands, they were up the coast at divers or something like that.
So when they did that run, you had to
We had to
wait until the corner came to that.
I have a little something that digresses just a bit from lifeguarding. It's so typical of kid in the old ladies. Old Laguna. And I have several copies, not too many, but I'm going to ask somebody to read it because I'm not too good in that department these days.
Mark has this.
Do it there, Craig.
I'll try.
Wow. Read it loud.
And here, and here. Now, a lot of the old timers will recognize this character.
This is when justice was swift by Judge Robert Gardner.
Oh, yes.
During the 1950s, California underwent something called a judicial reform, and as a result, Orange County lost its justices of the peace. These JPs, usually laymen, were replaced by lawyers at municipal courts. And as the result, we lost some wonderfully colorful characters. One of the most colorful was the Justice of the Peace for Laguna Beach Township, the Honorable C. Grady Cravat. Pardon. Gary was what my father would have called a fine figure of a man. Big, husky, broad-shouldered. He stood ramrod straight, and as far as I know, never sat down. He even wrote in a stand-up desk. He was a handsome man with ruddy complexion, craggy features, short-cropped white hair, short-cropped white mustache, and fierce blue eyes. When he spoke, he did so with distinctive raspy tones that seemed to be typical of the shortstops and second basemen. This was probably because Gabby had come to the judicial structure not by way of Harvard Law School, but by way of big league baseball. Benjamin Cardozo, he was not, but his cactus cravat, pardon me. He had been the first home run king of big league baseball. When he retired to Laguna Beach, he was promptly elected Justice of the Peace. Gabby was fair, he was honest, he was fearless, he was just, and after all, you can't ask much more of a man than that from a judge. He had a wonderfully honed sense of right and wrong, together with some kind of rebellion radar that led him to the right answers in spite of all the legal complexities in the case. Pardon me for stumbling here. Cold read. In those days, an appeal from the Justice Court resulted in a new trial in the Superior Court. I have no recollection that any Superior Court judge, with all of his vast knowledge of the law, ever came to a different conclusion in a case appealed from the Laguna Beach Justice Court that had Judge Cravat, with all of his legal shortcomings, appointed. Gaddy had a way of cutting through the underbrush and getting to the heart of the matter in a somewhat embarrassingly direct way. For example, one day a particularly obnoxious citizen rushed into Gabby's courtroom and demanded that he issue a complaint against another citizen for disturbing the peace. He said that another citizen had called him a son of a bitch, and without even looking up, Gabby replied, "Well, you are, and here." Gabby's distaste for some of the law's niceties was a matter of some concern to the legal community. And one day, I was sitting in his courtroom with George Boyd, a motorcycle officer from Santa Ana Police Department. Gabby asked George if he was going to Santa Ana. George said he was, and Gabby asked him he would mind taking a prisoner to the county jail. George Boyd was another free soul, and he agreed. In a few minutes, an officer brought a man who was obviously the town drunk. From his appearance, he was just one jump from going into DT's. Gabby said, "Pete, you hop on the back of George's bike and he'll take you up to the county jail for a few days to dry out." Pete, obviously no stranger to court procedures, protested, "You can't do that. Gabby, hell, I ain't even been arraigned yet." You want me to go on?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry, I'm not a great cold reader.
You're doing wonderfully.
Gabby fixed Pete with his fiercest look and growled, "Now look here, Pete. You know you were drunk. I know you were drunk. Now we're not going to waste any of the taxpayers' money at any goddamn trial. Get on that goddamn motorcycle and go to jail for a few days and dry out." Pete paused a moment, thought full of shaky meditation, finally grinned, shrugged, and hopped on the bike with George. Now, another time when I was in the district attorney's office, I was slated to go to Laguna Beach for a preliminary hearing for a defendant charged with burglary. The phone rang. It was Gabby. "Bobby says, don't worry. Don't bother to come down for that preliminary." "Well, why not, Gabby?" I inquired. Gabby started, "Hell, I just put the guy on the witness stand, sweated out a confession, got him reduced to petty theft, fined him $50, and he left town. Again, and a lawsuit. Probably substantial justice." Most lawyers annoyed Gabby. He didn't dislike lawyers, but lawyers were simply a nuisance and cluttering up the courtroom, wasting valuable judicial time on objections and arguments. Gabby had a favorite and comfortable way of expressing his distaste for the legal profession. After the taking of evidence, the judge instructs the jury as to the law. Now, in those days, we made up our own instructions. Now it's all done with a handy little book. But under the old system, you would spend countless hours in the law library preparing instructions that told the jury that your side of the case was right. Your opponent was doing the same thing. Then you both handed your sets of instructions to the judge and hoped he would read yours to the jury. Gabby would have none of this nonsense. He would look at his awesome stack of papers for a moment, shake his head in disgust, and in full view of the jury, throw all these wonderful works of legal art into the wastebasket. And Gabby would turn to the jury and say something like this: "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the defendant is charged with stealing $50 from Mr. Jones. I certainly hope you have lived long enough to know that stealing means, without my spending a couple of hours telling the fine legal distinctions in the law on the theft. So stealing means exactly what it says. The district attorney has the responsibility of proving that the defendant is guilty of theft beyond a reasonable doubt and to a moral certainty. If he hasn't carried that burden, you are to acquit the defendant. You have heard the evidence. There are the only ones who can decide who is telling the truth and who is not. Now, retire, deliberate, and come to a decision." As I look over the above, it's not bad, frankly. It's a lot better than the countless hours of hair-splitting refinements and nitpicking redundancies I inflicted on juries throughout my years as a trial judge under the guise of instructing them in the applicable law. However, in spite of Gabby's legal eccentricities, he was a man of heart and sensitivity and of compassion. I saw a good example of this one day when I was sitting in his court. The officers brought into the courtroom a young man who was handcuffed and marched in every way known to law enforcement. He had more chains on him than a logging truck. The prisoner had been arrested the night before after a headline-making police chase following a traffic accident. He was charged with assault with a deadly weapon on the police officers by the use of his car, felony drunk driving, felony hit and run, resisting arrest, speeding, reckless driving, disturbing the peace, and every other crime. And an innovative desk sergeant had been able to glean from the various criminal codes. I don't think I've ever seen a more demoralized human being. Hungover, unnerved, twitching, trembling. He was completely beat down. Gabby instructed the officers to unman for him. And then in his fierce blue eyes saw him. "Listen, son, you think you're in trouble. I've been in more trouble in my time than you can get into if you live to be 100. Toss the young man a coin. Run down to Ben's, get a cup of coffee, and when you come back, we'll take up your problems. The officers were aghast at the really sterilized prisoner. They scowled in a submission. The youngster tottered out. Frankly, I didn't expect to see him again. Scared as he was, I, together with the officers, thought that he would either make or run for it or drown himself.